My name is Dennis Guillaume. I live in a condo in Hopkins, and this is a candidates forum of the Hopkins-Minnetonka Community Safety Project. We're welcome everyone who's watching live on YouTube and also watching the YouTube video after tonight of our forum. We have 3 mayoral candidates who are invited, one of whom was forced to cancel at the last minute, and 4 city council candidates, all of whom had agreed to participate, and we are recording this forum. I'm going to turn it over to Amy. Introduce yourself and take it away.
Hi, my name's Amy Schneider, and I am a resident of Hopkins and participant in the Hopkins-Minnetonka Community Safety Project. So, let's see, the participants, I'll go over some of the rules that were, the format and such, and then I'll hand it back to Dennis to kind of tell you how we got here. So we, as the project and members of the community of Hopkins, got together, came up with some questions, and I will later go over the background for those questions, how we came up with them and such. Came up with the questions. We sent those questions to all the candidates about a week ago. We then waited for their response to let us know that they were attending, and then we randomly assigned them times. We will then bring the candidates in at their assigned times to go over the questions. Each candidate has 10 minutes to answer the questions, not 10 minutes per question, but 10 minutes total for our questions. We will have a timekeeper, and that is the forum or the format that we are using for this forum. So I will send it back to Dennis to give us the intro for the Hopkins-Minnetonka Community Safety Project, how we got here, and then I'll talk more about how we got to the questions we have.
Practicing our technology skills and sharing the screen. Hopkins-Minnetonka Community Safety Project began after the February Hopkins Race and Equity Initiative virtual forum on policing, at which police chiefs from Hopkins, Minnetonka, and St. Louis Park answered questions from the community. This prompted our March request for data from the Hopkins Police Department. In April, Dante Wright was killed by a veteran police officer in Brooklyn Park. The project made a formal data practice request from the police department and planned a May 25th remembrance of St. Louis Park resident George Floyd, murdered by Minneapolis police 1 year earlier. On our Facebook page, we defined community safety in broad, nonpartisan terms. Each member of our community should be treated with dignity, be welcomed, and be safe from harm in their home, neighborhood, school, and workplace. Everyone deserves to be safe regardless of race, color, religion, income, physical or mental diversity, gender identity, immigration status, or housing. And every person in crisis will get help from an appropriately trained professional, no matter the need, including housing, medical or mental health, drug and alcohol addiction, or violence and abuse prevention. Since then, we've collected more data. Why are we doing this? Why are we asking questions about the Hopkins Police Department? It's simple. Despite all the community engagement and officer training the Hopkins Police Department has invested in over the years, some of the data is worrisome. Hopkins, like many communities, is just one incident away from becoming the next community in mourning. We're challenging our leaders to act in the best interest of all of us. Cities and legislatures across the country are re-examining what community safety looks like, what policing looks like. There's no reason Hopkins can't be a proactive leader in this effort. We want our leaders to take action before there is another unwarranted death, not after.
Okay, so introduction and some background to the questions that we're going to be asking the candidates. The city's website says, by making racial equity a part of the city's key goals, the city council has set a clear expectation for accountability to the community, found in About Hopkins Race Equity, and that the city council's vision is that all people feel safe, respected, and diversity is celebrated, found on the website under City Council Mission and Vision. And we know that Hopkins will be increasingly diverse in the coming years. One note about statistics: all the statistics used here that I'll read through and are on your screen come from either the Hopkins Police Department or the Hopkins City website. 2020 census data is only now just available, but does not change much the numbers that are cited here. So the first question is going to go over data and accountability. Dante Wright was killed by a Brooklyn Center police officer at a traffic stop on April 11th. A data practice request to the Hopkins Police Department in May asked for 5 years of traffic stop data by race. The request had to be amended because the city's data storage system could not easily retrieve that information. We asked instead for traffic stop data by race only for the month of July 2020. For this and several other data requests, the city clerk billed us $1,197.68 for 22 hours of labor. This payment was later waived. So question 1 is about making Hopkins Police Department data more easily available. I should also say that all of the candidates received all this background information in addition to the questions that they will be asked this evening. Question 2 is from the data that we requested. This is some information that we learned. In July of 2020, 30% of the arrests, citations, written warnings, and verbal warnings resulting from traffic stops were given to Black residents or visitors, while the Black population of Hopkins was 19%. In 2020, 44% of those arrested were Black, and Black residents or visitors were given citations, written warnings, and verbal warnings at rates higher than their share of the population. From 2015 to 2020, Black residents or visitors were arrested at more than twice their proportion of the Hopkins population, every year for which data was provided by the Hopkins Police Department. In 2017 and in 2019, in fact, more Black residents or visitors were arrested than whites. So question number 2 is about council oversight of the Hopkins Police Department. Question 3 is about alternatives to policing. The opioid crisis, COVID pandemic, and financial insecurity have taken a toll on our mental health. Hopkins currently shares 1 full-time social worker with St. Louis Park as part of the embedded social work initiative run by Hennepin County. This social worker works in 2 police departments, serving more than 69,000 residents. The program recently expanded into new communities, but Hopkins still gets a half-time social worker. Question 4. About diverse police department for a diverse community. So diversity and hiring in the Hopkins Police Department. At a February Hopkins Race and Equity Initiative Forum on Policing, Chief Johnson reported that Hopkins had 30 sworn officers, none of whom were Black, Indigenous, or people of color. Hopkins residents are already 40% BIPOC. If the police department were to look like the community it serves, then 12 officers would identify as BIPOC, and half of those would be Black. Question 5, which is also our final question, is about reviewing traffic stop practices. In light of concerns about police stopping BIPOC drivers for minor or non-moving offenses, some communities have reviewed their police department traffic stop practices and updated their policies. Expired registration tabs, items dangling from mirrors, not having a working license plate light, broken tail or headlights, and other low-level traffic infractions are often crimes of poverty, and perhaps should no longer be cause for drivers like Philando Castile and Dante Wright to be stopped by police. So our first candidate that will be joining us, we'll have our mayoral candidates join first, Patrick Hanlon being the first, and then Jason Gadd after that. And then after those two, we will have our 4 city council candidates. And we will be sharing, asking the questions among Hopkins residents that are part of the community project. Dennis, I'll send it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Amy. We have 4 of the 5 questions tonight. I'll be asking question number 1. Allegra as a party will be asking question number 2. Angie Sundell will be asking question number 3. Cynthia Givens will be asking question number 4. And Allegra will be asking question number 5. We have a timekeeper. We have to get in all the questions and all the answers in the 10-minute slot for each candidate. I'm watching the clock because at 7:25 we let in our first candidate, who is Patrick Hanlon. Sam Stiley has withdrawn from tonight. It says that he has a family situation that takes him away. So at 7:25 we'll let Patrick Hanlon in, and I'll have to remind him that we have to get all the questions and their answers in 10 minutes. In fact, I should probably go ahead and let him in right now, and maybe we'll get him an extra minute for Jason Gadd too. Patrick, welcome. Glad you could join us. As I just told our live audience, such as it may be, we have to try and get all of our questions and the answers in the 10 minutes. You already have seen the questions and all the background information. Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, good.
So we're just gonna, I'm just gonna start by asking you question number 1. The background information's already been shared.
Live audience,
and
as it may be.
yeah, sounds like I can hear myself. I'm getting an echo, Patrick.
Yeah.
In the 10 minutes, you already have seen the questions and all of.
If you're watching it on YouTube, you got to turn it off, I guess. Okay. So
There we go. Yeah, I'm trying to pull you up here.
well, we're mostly going to be looking at you, and as long as you can hear me, that's what we need. I am going to share my screen. Just put the question on the screen so everyone can see it. So question 1, if the data storage and retrieval system currently in use cannot provide adequate and timely reports on the police department's progress toward equitable treatment of all residents, will you A, support including funds in the 2022 budget to repair or replace that system, and B, require regular presentation of timely reports to the council and the public?
Great. All right. Thank you. Well, and thank you for having me on tonight. I appreciate you all organizing and setting up this forum. In answer to that first question, yes, data is transparency in data, government data is very important. I would like to look at, cost analysis and data options, including disaggregating by race. And so, yes, I would be supportive of ways of having transparency and data and accountability, including disaggregating by race. And I think that's just an area where all government programs are heading in a lot of different jurisdictions. So I think there's different models to be able to draw off of. Obviously, I would want to work with our police department in talking about protecting data where there's HIPAA, private information, but disaggregating by race in some of the statistics that you have done research on, and being able to just look at where we're at as a city. And I just included a link on the side here. That's a program that I run, that we recently won an award for data practices around open and transparent data practices in environmental justice communities. And that program, we really developed that by first looking at areas where we were weak. We were running a program across the city and we weren't hitting certain areas. And so the data allowed us a way to look at, in a non-biased way, look at our program and make improvements on it. So yeah, I would want to work with our police department in ways that work with them to look at some of that data and what are some ways that we can address some of the issues that we're seeing. Also understanding that there are societal implications of data that we're seeing as well. And, that it's, what can the police impact in their practices and what are they responding to societally?
Okay, question 2, Allegra.
You're on, Allegra, you're on mute.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. All right, can you hear me
We've all
now?
been there, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Given Hopkins' stated commitment to make all people feel safe and to make city government, and by extension, the police department, accountable to the community, what initiatives will you immediately undertake if you are elected to demonstrate oversight of the Hopkins Police Department?
Sure. I think about the same way that we have capital improvement plans, we have maintenance of street plans, is working with the police department in coming up with what their public safety plans are. And I know that the police department, Chief Johnson and his staff have been thinking about a lot of these areas, especially as the LRT comes in, working with Metro Transit Police. So what are our outreach plans? What are the adequate staffing that they have in the police department to be able to have those intentional relationships out in our community? You look at the work that folks like Julia in the police department and Buck are out in the community working with folks and bringing back feedback from the community, where they're making recommendations with the police department. That work, that intentional relationship building, and I have experience doing a lot of that in very diverse communities in Minneapolis and North Minneapolis, South Minneapolis. That kind of work takes time and it takes resource for the police to be able to go out and provide that sort of interaction with the public. Plans and resources for training, support services, also with the understanding, not only in, we're going to talk about getting out additive services in mental health in other areas where we can provide resources to folks in the community, but also for the officers, is to make sure that, they deal with a lot of trauma, a lot of things that, you and I and other folks, we don't see on a regular basis. And these officers have trauma when they go into their work. And so in looking at, sort of procedural justice training and other training that's supported by the National Chiefs Association, to be able to have support for our officers so that when they show up, they're not dealing with some of their own trauma as they're going out into the community. And then, review of adequate training budgets, to ensure that, that police have for these different training procedures, that they have the time and they have the budget. As mayor, looking at those different budget requests and ensuring that the police department has the support that they need to provide that training to the officers.
Okay. I neglected to say, if we run out of time in your 10 minutes, we may not get to the last question, and that's just that's just the way it'll be.
Okay.
Number 3, Angie.
To get help to those who need it, and as an alternative to the criminal justice system, will you commit to working with our county commissioner for an expansion in Hopkins and St. Louis Park of the embedded social worker program, and to investigate adding to the program mental health and other crisis responders?
Yes, absolutely. The social worker program, that's a great additive service that can be provided for residents, but I definitely want to work with the county to ensure that we get, with that FTE, that full-time equivalent position, that, we're getting the necessary resources that we need. And even, as it mentions here, expanding those services as they're needed, because I know that there's more cases than that, that program could use more resources. So looking at ways that we can expand that program, I would definitely be in favor of that.
Okay. All right, thank you. And question number 4, Cynthia.
Hey, if the current Hopkins Police Department hiring practices have not led to improved diversity in hiring, what is the council's responsibility in this, and how will you address this issue if you're elected?
Right. Yeah. So I mean, the council and the mayor's is the oversight of looking at what the different practices are for increasing diversity and asking those probing questions of our department heads. Minnesota has some of the highest barriers to entry with a 2-year law enforcement degree, 1 year in skills training. And so, you know, part of that I think would be working, you know, I work closely with our, Jen Bouchard, who's running for the head of chair of the public schools, and working on ways that we can engage youth in looking at policing as an honorable career field, which it is, you know, and getting youth involved in those types of training programs. You know, St. Paul has an AmeriCorps program. So not only looking at sworn officers, but also looking at the civilian roles and what are some different ways to get young adults and get people experience, especially people of color, experience in those careers. And then active recruitment. I know through the cadet program that they try to do a lot of that. They have some challenges with their attrition rate. It's not a high level of attrition from Hopkins in a small city like ours. So as we get attrition, how do we look at being very active in our recruitment of candidates? And, you know, I have experience in that as well, as I ran a program that was not very diverse and have over a period of years worked very hard to bring on internships, urban scholars into programs that we can get higher levels of diversity. And then offering competitive wages. Oftentimes people are, you know, cadet programs, people are trained, and then we might lose them to a St. Paul or a different place that is offering higher wages. So making sure that our wages are on. Sorry, I planned for timing with my answers, not as much the questions you guys are going to be asking. So yeah, so that would be the other one is paying competitive wages to ensure that we can keep the folks that we train.
Okay, I think we should stop there. We won't have enough time to hear the answer. I feel like a game show host. Running out of time, we're going to give you $100 anyway. I'm just kidding about the $100. Thank you very much for participating and being our first candidate tonight. And we'll now we'll invite you to leave and go back to watching it on YouTube, and we'll invite Jason Gadd into the room.
Sure, thank you.
So thank you, Patrick.
Thank you. Appreciate the time.
Okay, Jason, you're in. We're going to start with the first question. We've already read the questions to our audience, and we're just going to quickly read them and hope we get everything in the 10 minutes. And Darcy is our timekeeper. Darcy, I didn't even let you ring your bell. Question 1 is, if the data storage and retrieval system currently in use cannot provide adequate and timely reports on the police department's progress toward equitable treatment of all residents, will you A, support including funds in the 2022 budget to repair or replace that system, and B, require regular presentation of timely reports to the council and the public?
Well, first, Dennis, I just want to say thank you for continuing these difficult conversations. And to remind people who I am, I'm Jason Gadd, Mayor Hopkins, and I'm running for re-election. And the focus of police and community is a national concern, and I'm excited to have these discussions locally here. I've had ongoing conversations with the police chief since I've been on council, and through those sessions, I've gained the confidence in our police and the methods that they utilize. And I know we only have 10 minutes tonight for this interaction, so I invite you at the start here to reach out if you want to have more in-depth conversations around any of these topics. In regards to the question of data storage and retrieval, no police data system currently exists that aggregates the specific data that was requested in the data request. The information, it does exist, and we have been tracking it by race for example, it just takes time to pull. And with any data request, we gladly compile it, yet my expectation is that if it does take a lot of extra staff time, it's only fair to our taxpayers that we try to recover some of the expense. Now, I do support continued funding of technology used by our police department, and definitely the enhancement of reporting that may be available. I know we're constantly looking at trying to figure out how we can get at the data a lot more easily. Our police department does currently provide regular presentations to myself and the public on an annual basis, and maintains full transparency with policies on the website.
All right, thank you. Let's see. And I certainly appreciate your being prepared with written answers. Question 2, Allegra.
Yes. Given Hopkins' stated commitment to make all people feel safe and to make city government, and by extension, the police department, accountable to the community, what initiatives will you immediately undertake if you are elected to demonstrate oversight of the Hopkins Police Department?
Well, as mayor and a council member, just to reiterate, Allegra, my role is to set overall policy and vision for the city and the city departments. The day-to-day operations and oversight of the police department does fall to the police chief and our city manager. Now, the chief and I do have regular discussions, and I've been able to learn from those and vice versa. Demonstrating the oversight of the Hopkins Police Department, I just want to reiterate too that our complete police policies have been established, are on the website. There are also model policies that have been established by the Minnesota Post Board or Peace Officer Standards and Trainings of the Minnesota Department of Public Safety. And as a city, we do conduct internal audits, checks, and compliance reviews annually. The one thing I do want to highlight, though, is the training of our officers far exceed the training requirements set by the post. And the training time our officers spend is a lot more than other departments. And that includes training in the necessary areas of science of force, de-escalation techniques, recognizing situations, creating strong relationships in the city. But when they see a violation of law, they are supposed to intervene regardless of race. Also like to just address the quick use of census data as a benchmark to create a comparison to traffic stops. It does provide a flawed view into the actual statistics. For example, I know you stated in the example of the July 2020 traffic stops that 30% of the arrests, citations, written warnings, verbal warnings resulting from traffic stops were given to Black residents or visitors, while the Black population of Hopkins is 19%. Using the census population doesn't really consider the visitors traveling through Hopkins, which is used in that 30%. If you look at just the BIPOC residents of Hopkins that were stopped, it was just 6.5%, with the total BIPOC population of Hopkins at 38%. That is why I feel, and I am advocating for a different benchmark that is needed. And what I'm going to be doing is working with our police as well as residents like yourselves to identify a better benchmarking method to more accurately display what the statistics are.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Question 3, Angie.
To get help to those who need it, and as an alternative to the criminal justice system, will you commit to working with our county commissioner for an expansion in Hopkins and St. Louis Park of the embedded social worker program, and to investigate adding to the program mental health and other crisis responders?
Andrew, great question. And this is something I've definitely been a champion for. We need to get people the more need that they have, whether it's the mental health, disability assistance. I mean, it's key with any of our police department. One of the things that I'm excited about to share is that in 2022, it is accurate right now, we do share a social worker with St. Louis Park, but in 2022, we will have a full-time social worker embedded in our department. It was in our preliminary city budget that we passed with the final approval coming in December. So we are moving that up to a full-time. But even with the part-time social worker, we were able to follow up with over 400 clients last year alone. So we are making an impact, but unfortunately it also shows the need is there. And so I am continuing to advocate with the county and our county commissioner to continue to put a focus on leveraging our resources between the city and the county and having them share part of the expense of the embedded social worker program and pay a percentage of that to help minimize our local cost. And the chief and I have been talking a lot about this recently and taking a look at the future. I do feel that we are going to need to have 2 full-time social workers here in Hopkins over the next few years as our population continues to expand.
Okay. Question 4, Cynthia.
If the current Hopkins Police Department hiring practices haven't led to improved diversity in hiring, what is the council's responsibility in this, and how will you address this issue if you are elected?
This is a very, very tough question, and I appreciate you asking that, Cynthia, and being a part of this discussion. I know this is an area that myself and the police chief and the department have been constantly working on and trying to hire a diverse staff, but that also includes the best officers and people for our city. There are 2 areas that I feel have an impact, and why, as we're looking at right now, we don't have any people of color on our department, or at least at the time of the HREI. One is that every city is focused on recruiting officers of color, and so we have had it here in Hopkins, an African American, Hispanic, librarian officers, and our candidates in training. But as we're a smaller department, we're unable to compete in terms of salaries to some of our neighboring larger departments. And so many do move on to other departments. We lost one of our Black officers just a year and a half ago to Minnetonka. The other area that I feel has the most impact on recruiting a diverse law enforcement officer is that the candidate pool is very limited with diverse candidates. And I'm working to address this by being an advocate for encouraging people to get interested in the law enforcement career so we can expand that candidate pool. For example, we have a great cadet program within our department to get students interested. But the other immediate area is to encourage our school district to work with our officers in creating that positive relationship building between student-police interactions. And we've had success in that in the past. I just wanted to share that with Operation Recess Acceptors, where officers would go to the playgrounds and play with the kids. And these provide that personal, positive connection between students and officers to really get them excited about being part of law enforcement career. Without that, they've only had a negative view of police.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Looking at the time, again, I'm saving Darcy her job of having to ring a bell. That we won't have time to finish the last one, which was becoming a pattern now. Looks like we're one question too long in our program. So I'll just say thank you. Thanks for agreeing to participate and bringing your prepared answers tonight.
I appreciate that. I just reiterate quick that if anybody has any questions, to please read out. Our police chief has invited people to stop down anytime, and he's still waiting to hear. So stop down anytime and chat with him.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
And if you can let yourself back out, we can move on. There we go. And Gerard, how are you tonight? We are ready.
I'm doing great. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. We've already shared, whoops, sorry about that. We've already shared the background, and now we'll just launch right into the questions so we can try and get through them all. If the data storage and retrieval system currently in use cannot provide adequate and timely reports on the police department's progress toward equitable treatment of all residents, will you A, support including funds in the 2022 budget to repair or replace that system, and B, require regular presentation of timely reports to the council and the public?
First, I'd like to thank the Hopkins-Minnetonka Community Safety Project for the opportunity to answer these questions and address this important topic. Currently, I'm not willing to commit to including funds in the 2022 budget for repairing issues with data storage and retrieval. My priorities for the first year in office will be making Hopkins more affordable, managing our $83 million in debt, increasing minority engagement and representation, and promoting Hopkins as a destination to grow our small businesses. As I've been door knocking throughout Hopkins and speaking with residents of color in particular, the overwhelming biggest concern is increased rents and mortgages, as well as high property taxes that threaten to displace vulnerable members of our population. I believe that city council decisions to be community driven, and that is where my focus will be. That said, I'm open to considering funds to repair or replace the data storage and retrieval system in the future. The second part of your question will be addressed in my answer to question 5.
All right, thank you. And question 2, Allegra.
Given Hopkins' stated commitment to make all people feel safe and to make city government and by extension the police department accountable to the community, what initiatives will you immediately undertake if you are elected to demonstrate oversight of the Hopkins Police Department?
To have the proper oversight, it's important we have the right leadership for the Hopkins Police Department. The proper role of the City Council is akin to a board of directors that ensures the right staff are in place to serve the people of Hopkins. In this case, that would be the Chief of Police, Brent Johnson, who has impressed me with practices that make the Hopkins Police Department ahead of most departments in the state, if not the country. I am pleased that each peace officer is trained in crisis intervention and de-escalation techniques on an ongoing basis. I also admire the outreach they do in the community to build trust, such as the Cops and Kids program. There's a multicultural advisory committee that offers advice, suggestions, and assistance to the Hopkins PD to aid in better serving the many cultures that reside in our great city. There's also the collaboration with the Hopkins Race and Equity Initiative, which opens the community up to tough but needed conversations on race, equity, and diversity. This list is in no way exhaustive. Overall, if there was ever a situation where it was felt that the chief was no longer up to the task, then I would sit down with my fellow city councilors and city staff, and we would find the right candidate for this position. However, as of now, Chief Johnson has my full confidence and support.
Thank you. And question 3, Angie.
To get help to those who need it, and as an alternative to the criminal justice system, will you commit to working with our county commissioner for an expansion in Hopkins and St. Louis Park of the embedded social worker program and to investigate adding to the program mental health and other crisis responders?
As a psychiatric nurse practitioner who has cared for the mentally ill for over 20 years, I am proud that the Hopkins Police Department partners with Hennepin County to provide a licensed social worker to assist officers in crisis situations and mental health centered calls. I would absolutely love to see this program expanded to include more social workers, and I'm happy we'll have a full-time social worker in Hopkins starting in 2022. As for the other mental health and crisis responders, that would depend on their level of training. I would prefer such workers have at least a bachelor's degree in psychology, but a master's degree would be ideal to ensure they are prepared to treat our vulnerable residents. I am an enthusiastic yes for working with the county commissioner. An important caveat, however, is I would prefer the program continue to be jointly funded between the city and the county to lessen the financial impact on Hopkins residents. I just met last week with Hennepin County Commissioner Chris Latondras to discuss strategies on improving affordability. I believe forging such relationships are important and will be a strong focus of mine as city councilor.
Okay, thank you. At number 4, Cynthia.
If the current Hopkins Police Department hiring practices haven't led to improved diversity in hiring, what is the council's responsibility in this, and how will you address this issue if you are elected?
I believe the council needs to sit down with city staff and the chief of police to look at our hiring practices and figure out why we have not made more progress. Rather than blaming anyone, we will work together as a team to learn how we can support police administration and being more successful with this important goal. What can we as a city do to attract talented minority applicants and have them choose Hopkins for their law enforcement career? How can we provide more outreach and work on our marketing and branding so that Hopkins is top of mind for law enforcement cadets? Do we also need to look at our salary offerings or benefits? These are the hard questions that will lead to more progress. I'd also like to see police outreach efforts expanded to include minority populations to encourage young residents of color to consider a career in law enforcement when they get older. Finally, as the Hopkins population grows, we will likely require more peace officers, and there will be a good opportunity to diversify the force as this occurs.
Thank you.
Whoops. Clicked the wrong button, almost left the meeting. And question number 5, you're the first person we made it to question number 5, Allegra.
Do you think there should be a review of the Hopkins Police Department traffic stop practices with the goal of reducing the number of unnecessary interactions police have with drivers?
This is a difficult question to answer because it is unclear what is meant by unnecessary. For example, I would not be in favor of reducing interactions with police if it is due to drivers driving intoxicated and putting the public at risk. We have a dedicated DUI police officer, and presumably That results in more people getting pulled over for driving impaired. That is a good thing. And I would want to see such interaction, and I would not want to see such interactions reduced. The same could be said for interactions that result in getting violent criminals off the street. This is also an equity issue because residents of color are disproportionately the victims of crime, and we as a city have a moral responsibility to protect the vulnerable. I am open to doing a yearly review of traffic stop policies or practices that could be included in the annual report the police department puts out. Before making a final decision, I will need to discuss the matter with fellow city councilors, city staff, and police department administration to iron out a plan for this to occur and to ensure that we have enough staff to do the increased workload. Overall, I would like to conclude that I'm committed to having a diversified police force that's committed to the community, keeps all residents safe, and treats everyone with dignity and respect. While the Hopkins Police Department is ahead of the curve, it could be made better with Ballin. I encourage your viewers to visit my website at www.betterwithballin, that's BALAN.com, and I ask for your vote on November 2nd so you can make affordability, equity, and destination a reality for this great city. Thank you again for the opportunity, and I hope you all have a great night.
Thank you, Gerard. We have our next candidate is not due until 7:55, so you have another minute if there's anything else that you would like to say to add to any of your previous answers.
I would say in general that the groups like this are very important. As city councilor, I'll be transparent. I will welcome these very difficult conversations, and I will continue to take data into account for all my decision making. But it is important to me that the public, the police, city staff, we all work in unison to keep the public safe, to have trust and responsibility in police, and for there to be accountability in the event that a police officer harms a member of the public.
All right, thank you, Gerard. You can let yourself back out of the meeting, and we will move on in just a minute to our next city council candidate. That's Ben Goodland. Just a reminder to anyone who's watching live that if we're successful in recording this, which I believe we are, then you should be able to see it in its entirety at your convenience after this is over. And also, if there's anyone who you think ought to have seen it, they certainly could find it on. We will connect it to our Facebook group. We'll also share it on other Facebook pages that have to do with Hopkins. So let's let Ben in. And as he comes in, okay, Ben, you've got a wicked light behind you, making it very hard to see you. If you could just move it over a little bit to the side, we could see you better. So that light wasn't directly behind you.
Right now. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. The light behind you is making it very hard to see you.
So that light up there?
Yeah.
Let's see, I'm just trying to think how I can go.
Well, that's better. That's better right there. Okay. And we are trying to get all 5 questions and answers into the 10 minutes, so we're going to jump right in. We've already shared all the background information with the audience, so we're just going to go right to question number 1. If the data, go ahead.
I just want to make sure you can hear and see me.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. If the data storage and retrieval system currently in use cannot provide adequate and timely reports on the police department's progress toward equitable treatment of all residents, will you A, support including funds in the 2022 budget to repair or replace the system, and B, require regular presentations of timely reports to the council and the public?
Well, first off, I'd like to thank the Hopkins Community Safety Project for hosting this great forum tonight. I'm delighted for this opportunity to speak with you tonight about something that is really a central pillar to my platform, and that's good community. I think an essential part of a strong community is public safety, and that is a strong community involvement and confidence. We stand here tonight knowing that a large portion of our community doesn't have that confidence. And, that's a reality that we simply must face. I'm Ben Goodland, and I'm running for Hopkins City Council because I believe that we need to build trust between our public safety departments and the community at large. While we address the issues at hand, we must understand that we will not always agree on everything. We must focus ourselves on hearing all the diverse perspectives. So again, thank you so much for hosting this great event tonight. It's important that we seek common ground solutions that emphasize the areas in which we all agree on. You see, my guiding principle here is supporting solutions that will create trust and drive accountability and strengthen confidence between our local law enforcement and our communities. Yes, we have enough money that we are able that we are spending to be able to implement these measures of transparency. However, it's not about raising taxes, and we should be able to do this by appropriating money appropriately. Our budget should match the concerns of the people which it serves. So this data is important because it strengthens trust between local law enforcement and the community. This data will tell us exactly what we're doing, whether we need to make reforms or whether we need to acknowledge our progress. I don't understand how anyone, frankly, could be against this request, as it ensures public trust, ensures confidence and accountability. So just as we present our budgets quarterly, this should be a requirement that I think that we can further be accomplished by uploading these reports to the city and Hopkins Police Department websites. And I think this is a great way to boost community involvement and encourage an ongoing dialogue within our community.
Okay, question number 2, Allegra.
Given Hopkins' stated commitment to make all people feel safe and to make city government and by extension the police department accountable to the community, what initiatives will you immediately undertake if you are elected to demonstrate oversight of the Hopkins Police Department?
So thank you for that question. I think that that's a really hard question to answer without the necessary data referenced in this previous question. So first off, we need to get that data so that we can assess the areas of strength and opportunities. But beyond that, we need to support more community involvement within our public safety department. I think this means creating positive interactions with our police department and not waiting for the most negative ones to emerge and surface. The reality is that if one's only interactions with the police involve citations and arrests, how can we expect then to build positive relationships within our community? I believe that this starts with our youth by having additional educational outreach opportunities such as National Night Out, after school programs, and community educational opportunities. And finding ways that officers can work side by side with different residents within our communities, be it on community service projects, helping out the elderly. What I think we forget is that the genuine power of a good deed here and how that can make a genuinely positive difference in someone's life and build exposure between groups of people that, may not always have positive interactions with one another. But, we need to be honest about what this takes to strengthen this relationship. And it means both sides coming together with, intentionality of creating positive interactions amongst one another. Let me just expound upon that for 1 minute. Going back, I was a school safety guard at Alice Smith in grades 5 and 6. And, I can tell you it would have meant the absolute world to me if I'd had a police officer stop by, once to the school and, commend me for the job I was doing and, just kind of sharing, how that, impacts the society, the greater community.
Okay, question number 3, Angie.
To get help to those who need it, and as an alternative to the criminal justice system, will you commit to working with our county commissioner for an expansion in Hopkins and St. Louis Park of the embedded social worker program, and to investigate adding to the program mental health and other crisis responders?
So as a pillar of good community, I believe strongly in supporting public safety initiatives. Both of these programs definitely seem like they would support this vision and of course would directly benefit our residents, particularly those who are in crisis. So as long as this does not compromise the current staffing of the Hopkins PD, I see no reason why we shouldn't invest in this. For example, Brooklyn Center, where this joint collaboration first piloted, it led to an 85% reduction in repeat callers. Even better is that this shared cost burden would save local taxpayers, as the city would only have to foot 60% of that bill and the county picks up the remainder of the 40% of that tab. So this is something that I completely agree with Commissioner Latondras on. And, I think that it's good for public safety, good for the tax, and ultimately to me, that's good for Hopkins. And as we all know, very soon, Southwest Light Rail Transit will be, bringing upwards of 4,000 commuters to Hopkins each and every day. And also there's these great new housing projects on Blake Road, and that could add up to 7,000 new residents to Hopkins. And we need to welcome them. But, we need to do that. And that to me means welcoming also more resources to help address citizens who are in crisis. So can I just share really quickly a personal story? Just last year.
Just point out, Ben, that when we run out of time, we run out of time. Go ahead.
Go on. I'm ready.
Question 4, Cynthia.
If the current Hopkins Police Department hiring practices have not led to improved diversity in hiring, what is the council's responsibility in this, and how will you address this issue if you are elected?
So I believe that the police force should be representative of the community it serves. So let me give you an example. I believe that the city council should also be reflective of the people that it serves. But let me be clear. I'm not asking for you to vote for me because I'm a person of color. I'm asking you to vote for me because I believe that I've got the best ideas to help out our community. So similarly to, to our police force here, I believe that we need to hire the best qualified candidates for the job. We have to realize that, recruiting, retaining, and hiring officers is even more challenging in today's climate. And while this original idea might, appear to be noble, the practical application is not effective and breeds tokenism. The very last thing we want to do is create misconceptions for qualified people of color who have actually obtained employment into law enforcement and proudly serve our community.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. And we have just enough time. Our last question is reducing traffic stops. Allegra.
Do you think there should be a review of the Hopkins Police Department traffic stop practices with a goal of reducing the number of unnecessary interactions police have with drivers?
So look, we don't have the data to assess whether that would be appropriate or not. We need to obtain that obviously before we make decisions. But driving a car is a complete privilege and responsibility, not anyone's right. And so here's the thing: items dangling from mirrors, broken taillights, our laws that are on the books are there because they impact the safety of our drivers and other drivers on the roads. The reality is that you have that if you have obstructions like that in the mirror, it jeopardizes people's lives. And I believe that, if you drive a vehicle, you have a shared responsibility to maintain its safety functions. So going back to one of my pillars, good community, for me, that's public safety. And I'm not going to support policies that erode the public safety. This is
Okay,
not—
Ben, Darcy's holding up her warning that our time is up.
Okay.
You're good though, because we almost never get to the 5th question, but you did. So I just want to thank you on behalf of the committee for participating tonight. And as you let yourself out, we will let Christy Halverson into the forum. So thank you, Ben.
Thank you so much.
Here she is. Okay, Christy.
Hello.
Just make sure. Hi, we can hear you.
Oh, good.
And we're waiting for your camera. We're not going to go back over reading any of the previous information. You have the questions. We've already read the questions out loud to our audience, so we're going to go right into the questions for you. Question number 1. And this is Christy Halverson. She's serving now on the council. Question 1 is, if the data storage and retrieval system currently in use cannot provide adequate and timely reports on the police department's progress toward equitable treatment of all residents, will you A, support including funds in the 2022 budget to repair or replace that system, and B, require regular presentation of timely reports to the council and the public?
Okay, the city council has had these discussions with the police department on a regular basis. And we have a policy of charging for data requests when it takes an employee away from their regular duties to collect the data. In this case, the fee was waived for the data that your group requested. There's not a system on the market currently that has the ability to retrieve the specific data that was requested without taking the time to pull it out of the system. The data does exist, but the program doesn't have an easy way to pull out specific data that was being requested. The current system is fairly new and does not need to be replaced at this time, so there will not be funds in the 2022 budget to replace the system.
Okay, and question 2, Allegra.
Given Hopkins' stated commitment to make all people feel safe and to make city government and by extension the police department accountable to the community, what initiatives will you immediately undertake if you are elected to demonstrate oversight of the Hopkins Police Department?
Most of the arrests have originated from a 911 call that an officer has responded to. The council's job is not to insert itself into the day-to-day operations of the police department. This is a job of the police chief and the city manager. We as a council set the overall policy and vision for the city and city departments. There are complete police policies on the city website that have been established by the Minnesota Post Board. The training of our officers exceed the training requirements established by the Post Board. Our officers have enhanced training in the science of force, de-escalation techniques, recognizing situations and creating strong relationships with the community. As a city, we do audit checks and compliance reviews annually. Statistics do not tell the whole story. I encourage you to stop into the police department and meet with the officers and learn about their training and how they do their job.
Okay, thank you. Question number 3.
Thank you.
To get help to those who need it, and as an alternative to the criminal justice system, will you commit to working with our county commissioner for an expansion in Hopkins and St. Louis Park of the embedded social worker program, and to investigate adding to the program mental health and other crisis responders?
Hopkins was one of the first departments in Hennepin County to partner with St. Louis Park and the county to have a social worker in the department. The city council voted and approved this position. The position was paid 40% by Hennepin County and 30% each by Hopkins and St. Louis Park. There have been 400 health calls this year. 210 of these calls resulted in getting help from other sources. The preliminary 2022 budget that was approved in September contains funding for a full-time social worker for the Hopkins Police Department.
Okay, and question 4.
If the current Hopkins Police Department hiring practices haven't led to improved diversity in hiring, what is the council's responsibility in this, and how will you address this issue if you're elected?
Well, the city council is not involved in the hiring of police officers. We have 3 openings for a full-time officer and are in the process of hiring right now. In the past, there used to be 200 applicants for each position. Currently, the department has only received 35 applicants. Every city is striving to recruit and hire the diverse candidates. As a small department, we are unable to compete in terms of salaries with the larger departments. We still need to hire the best candidate for our police department. We have a police cadet program where we've recruited a diverse group of cadets. The other programs where our department has interacted with youth in Hopkins, a few of them are Fishing with Cops, Operation Recess, Shopping with Cops, and then we have a summer program where kids come in and get to meet the police. These programs allow our youth to interact with the officers and get to know them in a positive and respectful manner. Some have even thought about the possibility of a career in law enforcement. So part of the programs is to get the kids used to what the law enforcement does and what the police department does. And I have heard some of them because it's the older kids in the summer program, and some of them have expressed interest in pursuing a career. And that's kind of how we've done it. It's just a matter of there's not as many people going into law enforcement right now, and it's difficult to find qualified candidates at this point to hire. And they are in the process of doing that right now.
Thank you.
Okay, and our last question with just time to spare. Do you think there should be a review of the Hopkins Police Department traffic stop practices with a goal of reducing the number of unnecessary interactions police have with drivers?
Our police officers are bound by their oath of office to enforce the laws that are created by the legislators. The council and the police department do not get to choose which laws we want to enforce. The council cannot ask our officers to ignore the oath that they have taken. Stopping someone with lights out is a safety issue for the driver of the vehicle and others on the road. We have a program that if someone has a light out, they are given a coupon to get a free bulb. There's even been a case when an officer stopped a car that was missing a car seat for their child. That officer went and purchased a car seat with their own funds to donate so that child would be safe in the car. This is what our officers do in Hopkins on a daily basis. And I would encourage anyone that has questions about the police department to reach out to our police chief, Brent Johnson. He would gladly take time to show you the ways that the Hopkins Police Department has gone above and beyond to make our community safer for everyone. If you want to do a ride along to see how the officers operate on the street, he'll be able to get that set up for you. And I've personally done a ride along, and it is very enlightening to see what goes on out there on the streets. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Looking at our clock, if you'd like, you have very efficiently prepared answers to our efficiently prepared questions. And so the reward for that is you have another minute before we have to move on to the next candidate.
Wow. I guess I just want to strongly encourage anyone that wants to reach out to the police department. Brett Johnson will definitely talk with you. And I would push the ride along because that is enlightening, and you get to see what they go through on a basis in their day-to-day life and what they're doing, and just to see how they interact with the public out on the street and how they interact with just about everybody. I mean, it was enlightening. I did a ride along, and I was with an officer that saw a group of kids and just stopped to say hi. They all knew him, and then there was one kid with them that wasn't usually with this group, and so he just kind of got to know him and met him, and it wasn't the interaction where he stopped and everybody was upset with each other. It was just a matter of saying hi, and all the kids were able to say hi back to him. And that to me, that says a lot for our force, where they know the people that are out there on the streets.
Okay, thank you very much, Christy.
Thank you.
And you let yourself out as we look for
All
our
right.
next candidate. And I do not see. Oh, I'm afraid I've lost the waiting room. I don't see Heidi. Oh, never mind. There she is. Okay, here she is. Heidi Garrido, candidate for City Council. Let me get my papers back in order. Yes. Okay. As we told everyone else, we have 10 minutes to get all the questions and answers in. Everyone's heard all the background information, so all we need is the quick question and then your answer. So first question is, if the data storage and retrieval system currently in use cannot provide adequate and timely reports on the police department's progress toward equitable treatment of all residents, will you support including funds in the 2022 budget to repair or replace that system? And B, require regular presentation of timely reports to the council and the public?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Hopkins-Minnetonka Community Safety Project, for hosting this forum. Very happy to be here. To answer that question, Yes, I support examining the budget and ensuring that we have a system to track this data efficiently and effectively. I have not been able to find out how much a different type of data system may cost. So my only hesitation is that, and perhaps the possibility of having to save for many years to shift to a new system. But I would absolutely support getting this data on a regular basis. And if the cost of a system such as that is too large, perhaps sharing the cost of that with other locals like Minnetonka, St. Louis Park, or even Hennepin County. I have good relationships with school board members, county and state level officials, and I look forward to listening to what our local school district wants, families, residents, what they all want, and working with those people and other electeds to move Hopkins and our county forward. I think that we need to require presentation of this reporting annually and to the council and make it available publicly. As you state in your previous presentation, we are one incident away from a tragedy, and a fixture of my campaign is transparency. And so I'm very supportive of an annual report. Utilizing a report isn't a way to just point fingers. I'm very supportive of the police, but it's just to ensure that we are continually getting better, and I want this city to continually get better for all of its residents.
Okay, second question.
Given Hopkins' stated commitment to make all people feel safe and to make city government, and by extension, the police department, accountable to the community, what initiatives will you immediately undertake if you are elected to demonstrate oversight of the Hopkins Police Department?
I would support de-escalation training for our community safety officers, which Minnesota already mandates, but having this training every 3 years could be insufficient. Perhaps having it more often would be better. I also believe that the council should work with police in supporting the public safety plans. And like Brooklyn Center just announced, I would re-exam arrests for non-felony offenses. I don't think, despite, I know that these are laws that we can't change, but personally, I don't feel that we should be pulling people over for air fresheners or expired tabs. In addition, we need to continue to educate the community as a whole about bias. These interactions with police typically start with a phone call from a community member, and we all need to ensure that our community is holding itself accountable for any bias we all have and ensuring that we all think with more equitability.
Okay, and number 3.
To get help to those who need it and as an alternative to the criminal justice system, will you commit to working with our county commissioner for an expansion in Hopkins and St. Louis Park of the embedded social worker program, and to investigate adding to the program mental health and other crisis responders?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Like I said, I have a good relationship with several electeds, like our Commissioner, Chris Latondras, and I would certainly work for expansion. Many altercations with police are driven by people with mental health issues, and so we need to ensure we get them the help they need and not meet their crisis with force. I would hope that expanding a program like this helps keep both our residents more safe, but also make sure we are meeting people with what they need, like the addition of our social worker in Hopkins. If people are in mental health crisis, let's meet them with a trained professional and allow our police to work on the areas they are trained for.
Thank you. Question 4. For Cynthia.
If the current Hopkins Police Department hiring practices haven't led to improved diversity in hiring, what is the council's responsibility in this? And how will you address this issue if you are elected?
So similar to the wording in the question we received, the council also doesn't reflect the diversity of Hopkins. And it's my understanding that in addition to, the no POC on the council, we have no POC on the Hopkins Police Force. I had a long conversation with 2 Hopkins police officers back in August and confirmed with them that there were no people of color in our police department. So the council could work with the police chief to understand the recruiting tactics, but also our culture. We don't want to recruit a more diverse police force only to have them leave, or, you know, to test out new methods of retention on them. I would propose an annual survey of our city employees to find out what we can improve. We want people to come to work here, so we need to be a good employer. I recently spoke to a former Hopkins police officer who went to another city's department, and he said that his reason for leaving was because he made more money elsewhere. So I hope someday we can attract the qualified candidates with a more competitive salary. And as I stated before, we should be focused on public safety. There are things that people do in a car that are not safe, like getting DUIs, but expired tabs and air fresheners just aren't those things. So while the council may not be able to change those types of laws, I would work with the police chief to ensure that our city remains safe. But I maintain that those minor offenses just aren't our focus area. And this is where the data would be really helpful to get regularly.
Thank you.
Thanks. And our last question, which we have gotten to because your answers were so concise. Back to
Do you
Allegra.
think there should be a, oh, sorry.
Go
Do you
ahead.
think there should be a review of the Hopkins Police Department traffic stop practices with the goal of reducing the number of unnecessary interactions police have with drivers?
Yeah, like I said, we can't change the laws as they stand now, but I mean, we certainly could work within our own community to ensure that our own force is, you know, focusing in the areas that are more problematic. So, you know, things like these minor offenses just aren't it. So if we can make a change like this, and then we're just being more equitable with our arrests and stops.
Okay, we have a good full minute and a half left of your time. If you have anything else you'd like to add, any questions you want to add, any details to, feel free.
No, I mean, I think I covered kind of my stance in it. I mean, yeah, I don't want to beat a dead horse. I probably would just kind of go over what I've already said. So there's probably no point to that. But if anyone has any further questions for me or wants me to clarify anything, my door is always open. My email's on the website. And I hope that I earn your vote on November 2nd.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And as you let yourself out, we will wrap up. Oh, actually, I should share this. One more sharing for our audience. Thank you to 6 of the 7 candidates who were able to come tonight. Thanks to Bink Summer from Mizpah UCC Church for providing the Zoom link. And thanks to Nathan Miller for setting up the YouTube channel. He was our tech person behind the scenes for the live stream and also for playback, which hopefully we'll be able to provide on our Facebook group page. And maybe we can share that other places as well. If you're interested in the Hopkins-Minnetonka Community Safety Project, you can send me a text at 612-888-6970, or you can join our Facebook group. And with that, Amy, any last comments from you?
No, I was just going to say, I hope you all go out and vote.
That's right. Early voting started already. You can vote at City Hall, fill out an absentee ballot application and vote. And then, of course, November 2nd is Election Day. And so I'll say thank you. Thanks to everyone who watched on YouTube. Have a good night.